Welcome back to the Geometric View, episode 35, season 3, where we get into the fractal properties of plasma, space, charge, time, and magnetohydrodynamic geometry. Oh yeah, we're going to get into the history of fractals, fractal art, fractal future, fractal prayers, biology. What isn't fractal? That's the question. I'm your host, Buddy James. Strap in. Here we go. Let's get into it.
Please support us on our Patreon link below.
The best way to support us is on PayPal. goldenscaling@gmail.com. Welcome, everybody, to the Geometric View. This is episode 35, season 3. Next episode will be our final episode in season 3. This episode, we are doing the fractal properties of plasma, space, charge, time, and magnetohydrodynamic geometry. We are going to go through the fractal properties of history, how history is a fractal, the brain, art, the fractal technology, the future of fractals and technology. I have to put the mind down. I'm taking, lost my pen. So we're going to get into fractal timescales, fractal filaments, gravity, fractal vorticity. What is fractals? All sorts of SpaceX Raptor engine tests and stuff that I found about that looks really cool as to how it matches other geometries that I've been working with, and the Blue Whirl. Fractal prayers, repetition of mantras, how all fractals come from simplicity and order out of chaos, and they can be broken back down into simplicity. We're going to get into Andy Hall's work and The Eye of the Storm Part 7 that he recently released. I will be quoting out of his work there. I'm excited. That gets into the fractal nature of circuitry. The origin of self-organization. Is space fractal? Is time fractal? It appears that everything is fractal. And I didn't even plan on wearing this paisley shirt that's fractal today. But coral is fractal. And it all breaks down into helicity. So let's get into the circuit and see what we are and how we are these fractal scales on many different layers and levels. I will be relating it to the work that I do, the Dougherty set, and Love is Watching, as I normally do. I have a presentation that I have put together for this week. I'll probably get to that towards the end, but I might hop into it earlier. We'll see. So now I'm going to share my screen. Where do we start? Where would we even start with fractals? Let's start with what are fractals. We can get into some of the history here and how the galaxy is fractal and grows with complexity as the complexity grows with the scale. As it scales out, complexity seems to be on the edges of the roughness of the universe. And we will get into, let's start fractals. Let's just look up fractal and see what the definition is here on Google. A curve or geometric figure, each part of which has the same statistical character as the whole. Fractals are useful in modeling structures such as eroded coastlines or snowflakes, in which similar patterns recur at progressively smaller scales, and in describing partly random or chaotic phenomena such as crystal growth, fluid turbulence, and galaxy formation. Now, I was introduced to fractals I think my freshman year. But I saw them first. That's what drew me in. It was a LSD trip that I had with my good friend, and I saw intricate patterns of all of nature, and the biology and everything has patterns, and they're gorgeous. And I just started seeing them breathe everywhere. Then I go to school, and my friend Dan Bovio, Floby, shout out to Bovio, showed me and introduced fractal geometry to me. Then I took a class in high school. I could choose whatever it was, as long as I chose a subject and pursued it. And at the end, had a presentation and a report. That was the class. So I chose fractals, and fractals are the mathematics of nature. Fractals are the mathematics of how the edges of the universe unfurl into and out of itself. There is the edge effect that everything has, and this edge effect is a fringing field, and this fringing field is the edge in constant expansion and contraction, explosive and implosive dynamism that's happening on small scale geometries that are recursive and iterative, meaning an iteration is repeating the same shape over and over and over. Now, there's self-iterative patterns in nature, and there's iterative patterns everywhere we look. These branching type of any type of branching structure is fractal most of the time. And I'm showing through other means how most of the branching is phi also, where the branches optimize vorticity and growth. So dendritic fractals, there is hexagonal fractals. Water breaks down, and charge separation is fractal, and that is water changing from any three or four of its different states as the phase transition happens. There's a hexagonal grid called structured water, or easy water, exclusion zone water, and the complexity increases and things break down into, and this might be the akasha, the memory, as water breaks down into it's the only element on Earth that we know that exists in its three phases: solid, liquid, and gas. These patterns is what I started doing at a very young age, thanks to a friend of mine who started doing them in school, named Matt Lambert. Shout out to Matt Lambert. Now, he started doing this, and then I was like, oh my gosh, you put paint on a surface, and then you sandwich it with another surface. Pressure and the release of pressure produces these patterns. And so another word for pressure and the release of pressure is compression and rarefaction. And that's how the universe breathes, using that type of modality. Now, a lot can be gathered and gained from this idea of pressure and the release of pressure on a two-dimensional surface. Because if you do this in 3 dimensions, you get trees. Now, perhaps, and this is really cool, because let me pull up some images here from our group chat. I shared this image earlier, and I think it's iconic of our group conversations here, because as you listen to some of our talks that we've had in the past, season 1, season 2, season 3, we're talking about coming out of the trees, coming out of sonification, literally pulling, extricating matter to reach out to the heavenly mirror image of its ethereal body that exists inside of the Van Allen belts as helicon waves. Now we see a woman here coming out of the water. Looks like she has a lantern. And I just think it's Edenic and idyllic image for perhaps we came out of the pine trees and the pine trees came out of recursive patterning of helicon waves in the Van Allen belts. So back to trees. Now you add this pressure and you add pressure in the release of pressure inside of cyclicity and vorticity on a three-dimensional scale, and you get trees. Trees are magical. If you've ever been in a forest, you will know without a doubt that these are erect, gigantic pieces of living matter that draws in life. It produces life, it harbors life, it gives life. And if you look at every tree, it's like they're reaching for the sun. Look at that, because they are. They're reaching for their counterpartner in space. This is what I propose here, according to the geometry that I've been working on for 17 years this week. Now, when you go into this, and I am Irish, and among other things, a good percentage of me, if not half of me, is Irish. And these ideas come from Nordic mythologies and Nordic beliefs that these trees coordinate and correspond with different plasmas and different auroras in the air. Now, if we pair them together, each tree has its own aurora and own aura, and so do we. That's our plasma field. Now, I kind of got off on a little bit of a tangent there, but what I wanted to say is that compression and rarefaction of these fields on a spheroid of a charged planet that has the global electric circuit surging through it is what's creating these it's seeming infinite amount of different types of creatures, but creatures can only exist in different size scales too, and that's fractal as well, according to Jeffrey West. We've gone through that quite a bit as well throughout these episodes. The metabolic rate of living creatures matches the global electric circuit inside of the Schumann cavity, and which is why we work with God in nature, and you breathe with God. There is an unlimited amount of connectivity that you can get into with your higher selves, your hierarchical, more connected selves than you, so you can start getting into yourself deeper. Okay, now fractals. Fractal was coined by Benoit Mandelbrot. There's some people pronounce it different, but Mandelbrot, who is, I think, Dutch mathematician. And it means parts and fragments of the whole. So it's very gestalt. It is the whole of things, but in pieces and parts. Now, there were fractals way before Benoit and Mandelbrot discovered and showed these to us. For example, and this is going to be important throughout the whole episode here, because this is quaternion physics and quaternion symmetry, which is how we do our computing and I mean, the neural code of the fibers of reality is based off of this as well, in a logarithmic scale invariant manner. Now let's look up Cantor, the Cantor set. Okay, so this is the Cantor set. In mathematics, the Cantor set is a set of points lying on a single line segment that has a number of remarkable and deep properties. It was discovered in 1874 by Henry John Stephen Smith and introduced by German mathematician Gregor Cantor. Of course, there was someone else who discovered it. At least they gave him credit. And usually the mathematician grabs it. But anyway, so here's German mathematician. He created set theory, which has become a fundamental theory in mathematics. You've heard the Dougherty set, the Mandelbrot set, the Julia set. A set is describing a series of transformations and iterations. So anyway, Cantor established the importance of one-to-one correspondence between the members of two sets. Through consideration of this set, Cantor and others helped lay the foundations of modern point set topology. Although Cantor himself defined the set as a general abstract weight, the most common modern construction is the Cantor ternary set. Okay, so this is it. A line, cut out the center, and it leaves you with 2. Okay, then you cut out the center and it leaves you with 2. So they're bifurcations. Now, these bifurcations break down to the same set as the fundamental filament, which is 1, 0, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. And this is important because I'm going to show everyone how this breakdown, this dyadic breakdown or two-adic breakdown, because it's 2, there's triadic, quaternion, but this dyadic or two-adic breakdown is also shown inside of the Feigenbaum constant, which is another fractal and is very much related to ancestral mathematics and ancestral geometries, which I'm going to show later inside of the news. So this basic fractal is extremely important, and it lays down the fundamentals. He lays down the fundamentals of set theory. So maybe we can go to set theory. But either way, I want to show you that this is one of the first people that broke down and showed fractals. And so then we can go to the Cantor or the Koch curve, which is another example of fractals and geometry, and which leads us right into feedback loops and antennas and technology. So you can look at this. Oh, here. I guess I'll read what it is here. The Koch snowflake, also known as the Koch curve, Koch star, or Koch's island, is a fractal curve and one of the earliest fractals to have been described. It is self-similar, and the iterations they repeat. So they're recursive, they recur. This is how we actually opened up the digital age that allows us to transmit our information right now across the globe almost instantaneously because of fractal antennas. Fractals are the gateway or key to the digital age and computers. because of fractal antennas, which is what allowed us to not have 55 antennas sticking off of our phone or our cars. The ability to maximize surface area and minimize body or volume was the ability to communicate. And since this, there has been much organization inside of telecommunications. And we're going to get into something that's rather alarming. I'm going to show later the 5G rollout in China and how everybody's tracked even more than they were before inside of their social credit score system. Now, I want to talk about is space fractal and the origin of self-organization. Is everything fractal? Is plasma fractal? So this is an episode about plasma, space, charge, time, and magnetohydrodynamics, the fractal properties of them. And I believe, working with the Thunderbolts project and the Electric Universe crews, that now I understand deeper what it is, the topology and the interscalar astrophysics and biophysics of these circuits and currents, according to the sets that I've been studying. I have created quite a few sets myself, and these sets are geometries. Now let's look up a fractal set. Set theory is a branch of mathematical logic that studies sets, which informally are collections of objects, although any object can be collected into a set. Now, that is exactly what the Dougherty set is. It's not necessarily a set. They're hierarchical foliations of light that are manifolds and geodesic spinning vorticities that create the outlining paths for helicon waves to traverse and amplify their inductance or amplify their sounds, so that the wolves on the earth can communicate with all the other creatures and start forming different rivers. They're not doing it. They might be doing it intelligently. They might not know what they're doing, but all creatures are communicating with other creatures. That's fractal. All communication is fractal. Everything is fractal, and it's solenoidal. It comes out of the voice box, the larynx. The toroidal language is the same set that all... Okay, I do the mathematics of fractal biology and how it unfolds from the sun as magnetohydrodynamic geometry and turns into biological creatures. That's what sonobiology is. Sound, life out of sound. You have sonoluminescence. That's light. That's light out of sound. But to create biological creatures, it necessitates that it goes through cyclical, recursive fractal loops. I think we got a hot mic. If someone mute it. Now these are the geometry of solenoids, and these are the same geometries as sound and modes and harmonics and subharmonics. Everything breaks down and comes out of destructive and constructive wave interference. These interferences happen way before they hit the Earth. There's so many layers of interference, and membranes are produced off of the membranes that are charged, more interference plasmoids are created off of these, like peduncles, like babies that are looped off of the circuit. Now, let me read. This is a perfect time, I think, almost perfect time to read some of Andy Hall's work. So I'll just do it. Let me see if I got a good image for this. Did I share some of these circuits? Okay. Stars and planets. This is Andy Hall's work from The Eye of the Storm, Part 7, which has to do with dragons and how dragons are circuits and electricity. So stars and planets are circuits, a three-dimensional standing wave of current and magnetism living in the winds of their parent stars and galaxies. They are a product of inductance and capacitance, potentials and currents, and the magnetic fields currents generates. The matter trapped inside the 3D whirlpools, gas, liquid, and dust, and yes, that includes us, is 100% organized by the circuitry. Circuits are cyclic processes. They produce resonant frequencies that are amplified and dampened by constructive and destructive interference. Andy Hall. Now, I talked about the edge effect and its fringing field, and that makes me want to show this image of, where is it? I think it's over here. These are the fringing alphabet of the galactic helicon waves. This is the 32nd chorus. This is the 7th chorus, and it's made with the 7th gate, which is just distance from source, and size, equality. So all that's happening here is pressure and the release of pressure inside of these circuits. Now, Birkeland currents hit the Earth and fray on the edges of the heliopause and the magnetosphere, and all the way along very lively circuitries of the Van Allen belts, as well as the auroras, the aurora australis and the aurora borealis. Now, the language of creatures is locked inside of these potentials as well, and each one of them is it all depends on even or odd, and all odd numbers are on the edges of the Birkeland current. They are what is referred to as, what I refer to as the surface tension of Birkeland currents and the surface tension of circuitry in space. Now, I've been talking about this, and now since I've been talking about it, a lot of other people are talking about it, and this is what makes the difference between this is literally the only difference between structured water and unstructured water is the surface tension, which is the tensegrity, or the tension of the entirety of the whole property, of the geometries of the property. Now, that's super important because the surface tension, like I said, is every single prime number. Every single prime number is the surface tension of the circuits of larger hierarchical circuits that break down into other circuits. It can never ever be an even number, because every single even number is nested inside of a larger circuit. The largest one on the outside is always odd. The ones on the inside that are always even, and then they successively braid with even numbers. No, not one odd number is in there. Now, this is weird because we're talking about number as form and number as being or essence. like Chris likes to say, cosmic sojourner here on the show. That's all that's happening here. And these whistling whistler waves and helicon waves create these choruses on the membranes that orchestrate and dictate where lightning strikes on the Earth. And this is important because the mind field here on Earth is really messed up, at least in the human capacity. Mind fields are the higher order of our hands and feet, where we're going. This is like, I guess you could say, our imagination field. We can see stuff during the day, we can dream stuff during the night, but it's always night somewhere, and the dream never stops. So these circuits, you can't stop them, and a lot of people blow their brains out because they can't control their thoughts. They have no foundation, and their resonance gets mixed up. It all comes down to sound. The entirety of everything in the universe is sound. All sound is fractal, and all fractals can be broken up to individual bodies that are actually living circuits that connect with the Akasha and that are what consciousness is. So consciousness is fractal. The more you get into this mindscape and realityscape, the more you see the field everywhere. Later on, I'm going to do a presentation about SpaceX Raptor engine test, and it blew my fucking mind, and I hope that everybody can take something from it. And like Garrett Hill, I wanted to have him on this episode because he wants to recreate the plasmoids inside of the geometry of the Dougherty networks and the Dougherty set in his lab. Now, guess what's happening? That's what SpaceX is doing. And it is the best, most advanced of the rockets that they have, the Raptor. And I guess it's what's going to get us to quote unquote Mars if we try to make ourselves that type of creature whilst people starve all over the earth. Okay, so now it is constantly happening, this vorticity. This vorticity is the same thing as what is it when you cavitate? This is a cavitating wave. Cavitating waves and waveforms make up, these have a sound. You know, when dolphins look at these, which reminds me of John Stewart Reed, who he just had great news in Times Square. They used his cymatics in Times Square with a love message and a message for hope for the people dealing with all the people in the hospitals, you know, the front line. Gorgeous. I hope I can cover it in the news hour if we have enough time today. So you see this helicity, and it is undeniable that everything is helical. And these space currents, these space filaments, are all fractal, and the basic breakdown of these helical filaments is toroids. It's toroidal. Now, we've talked about what comes first in this episode, matter or consciousness, and we definitely got to substantive material showing that it most likely comes from mind fields and fractal fields first, and then turns into matter fields, more fractal fields. Now, we know these basic Chladni patterns and basic resonance patterns exist at different frequencies. Excuse me. We are vessels of these frequencies. We are part and parcel of this exact geometry. Let me get out of here. Over here. I'm trying to go to a certain image. I don't know why it's not here. I'll pull it up right here. Because this is what I keep talking about here. Now, Dan Winter has broken down the fractal properties of space, plasma, charge, and time like nobody else that I've found has done in such a constructive manner. I love what Dan Winter has done, and I want to say that he did find out the recursive nesting in field geometries is what creates implosion within the magnetic monopole, which is like gravity here on Earth. And I also want to reiterate that Gaston Julia, or no, I haven't even said this yet, but Julia, who created the Julia set in fractals, he shows that it's an iterative feedback loops that are taking the same equation and feeding it back into itself and repeating it over and over. That's what nature does. That's how we get fractals. That's how we get bodies that reproduce, that create bodies that reproduce. That's what sex is. It's completion of a charge. It is some completion of the circuit of a loop. When you complete the loop, that's what sex is. And you read what Walter Russell has to say about sex, and what Nikola Tesla has to say about sex. And it'll really vivify maybe and help our nature as beings to understand how sacred and how much information is exchanged during sexual intercourse. It's a lot more than just sex. It's flatlining the circuit, and both beings come together. All of this history of both beings come together and flatline the circuit. So if a person's way up here and on their pedestal doing some special blah blah blah, and then they have sex with someone that's considered way down here in society, apparently there's an equanimity or an equal line that's reached during the threshold of copulation, and that's circuitry. And the circuitry of the dynamics of the geometry. If one could be super psychic during or after these events, maybe there's memory that happens, like the memory that flashes before your life. Maybe that's something like inside the orgasm. So now what Mandelbrot did is he showed what fractals were, and he showed the nature of, one of the things he did is show the nature of them, and that they're everywhere. They're on coastlines, they're in the clouds, they're in the line of the trees, and how the trees match the line of the clouds, and the green grass grows all around, and everything is super fluid fractals and fractality. Now, Dan Winter talks about fractality, and he says it is pressure distribution efficiency, fractality. Now, what we've been talking about is like a fluid universe and a superfluid universe, and the sun being sonoluminescence, and what happens during that is you get the solar electric circuit, and everything is cavitating. So if everything's cavitating, you have these multi-nested vorticities that are made up of different types of simple geometries that are rotating. If you go into episode, I think 3 or 4, we do the geometry of lightning, and how if you slice open a lightning bolt, the geometry that you get, and it's hexagonal. It's inverse hexagonal, but you can get to the inverse hexagonal by doing the square root, or the inverse square. So it's just taking a square within a square within a square. Now that produces this geometry that when you rotate it, you have kissing spheres that act as pinch points where Apollonian gaskets spit out charge, and that's where we have particles. Particles inside of the Zitterbewegung, or the 0-point energy, are along the fulcrum here. But it's not just one straight fulcrum, which would be a field-aligned current. It's not just one straight fulcrum. it's wraparound, it's azimuthal, and it's also radiative and cyclical. And that's the charge of the center of anything. All centers work the same. So now you can look at different nebulas and show and see that they're fractal. And you can also look at, so by the end of this episode, I'm hoping that people write in the comments or something, try to prove me that something that is not fractal, because everything can be broken down into fractals, which we will be getting into the fractality of space-time and scale relativity. So you can see that this right here, that blob and this blob, these two lobes coming off of the center are almost identical. You know, if you rotate it and were to look at it, it would probably be like almost identical explosion. Now you have this part over here. That's, look, there's the reverse part over there. You have this part here and the tip of the cephalization that's going on here, and you have this part over here. Now, what's conscious about it? The whole damn thing is conscious. Now, where is the energy? The energy is in the membranes that's lit up. Where's the distribution of the energy? Inside of the compression and rarefaction of all things that are pushing and moving inside of this, creating these dendrites in here and stars forming along these circuits and these currents. It's fractal. You have a circle within a circle within a circle repeating its shape, and you get fractals. That's the key to fractality, is iterations. Iterations is you smoothing over a thought over and over and over and over, and thinking about it, and to the point where you do it. Fractals are constantly thinking. Your mind is fractal. You build up recursive thought membranes. There's going to be an episode that I do where I get into this. I don't even know what to call it. I forget what I used to call it. But there's loops inside of space, and you can go back and go forward in time inside of these places here through your senses without having to leave anywhere. And that is crazy. I'll do a whole episode about that. But it's definitely all involves neural pathways, how to and the neural pathways and getting addicted to new things, novelty, and then being able to stop yourself from the new addictions, the positive addictions that you get, and get rid of old addictions, because we are habitual by nature. So we got to feed that circuitry of habituality. And that's why so many people get stuck inside of dependence on drugs, because it feeds our, oh, I liked it, I'll do it again. And then we become numb to how good it feels. So we have to stop doing it to go back to do it again. And that's just the nature of the beast. That's just the nature of the cyclicity of becoming numb to your cigarette addiction, your weed addiction. You know, it takes a lot of discipline, self-discipline, what I'm talking about. And I'm glad that I'll do a whole episode about that, because I don't have it all right here in my thought dome, my thought connectome. Now, one day I typed in fractal space-time, and I got an image that showed the Mueller set. Now, there's a lot here with Dan Winter. I love Dan Winter's work. We're going to get into some of that probably as well. I mean, we can't talk about it without getting into it. Now, let me just type in the Mueller set. Now, you'll see how it has to relate to Cantor set and the breakdown of space-time and Hurlburt space. So, fractal space-time. Let's see. The fractal. Now, we've talked about this guy quite extensively. When I saw this, I shit my pants because I found this in the natural recursions inside of the Dougherty set and inside of the, the Dougherty networks that I draw. These are natural, the natural breakdown of space and time can be modeled using these Mueller fractals. And encoded inside of it, coded inside of it is the secret to encryption. Encryption is and only is done so far. Well, one of the best ways of encryption is through prime numbers. The prime numbers dispersed along circuits is what allows for encryption, and not just circuits, but in computer algorithms and things like that as well. So what's this? That looks interesting. Looks like more fractal antennas, breakdown of fractals, applications of them. Now let's type in fractal technology. Fractal technology, look. Yeah, of course you get into the matrix. Starts to all break down into the matrix. There's stuff in the news hour that shows that we have been able to get into the neural pathways somehow. I'm excited. I haven't read the article yet. But that'll be in a little bit here. So I'm trying to make it 2 hours. So we got 10 minutes to the news hour. And I'm going to, I think I'm going to look at my notes here. So I'm hoping that we all can see here that galaxies are fractal. And humans are fractal, and our bodies are fractal. We're a 5-point fractal, and actually the breakdown of the Dougherty set is a pentagonal type of pentatonic, which really kind of blew my mind. I can show you the secret here right now. Pulling up Google Sheets, which I have to pull up Google Slides here too for the presentation. So I'll go into these circuits and how charge works on the membranes and then dissipates itself accordingly along these shells as it rotates. Like you could say the lightning is similar to a birkeland current because of the way that the geodesics break down inside of the crystalline liquid filament. We're all being charged by these crystalline liquid filaments, and that's part of the global electric circuit. Now, I want to teach how we can have entrainment and entrainment with our bioacoustic field into these larger hierarchical fields that are there. That's what praying, meditating, all these different things are. envisioning these geometries, just looking at these geometries and allowing yourself to build a Merkaba, a spinning, rotating crystal cathedral around you, allows you to get into these kingdoms. Kingdom of heaven is here. The gates are open, and the gates are narrow, but they're open. Now we want to understand the gate, which is what Andy Hall does so well at showing the eye of the storm. Everything is the eye of the storm. Everything is fractal, and it spirals and spins off of it in that type of manner. Now, oh, is my thing finally opening? Let's see. Okay. So these galaxies form the same type of helicon geometry that comes so basically the galaxy breaks down into self-similar recursions of itself on micro scales, on tiny frequency scales, and mirrors the same type of geometry that's happening. And this is all shown inside of the geometry of the Dougherty set, which I was blessed with as a vision in 2003, August. So I'm waiting for this to open up, Google Sheets. Maybe it's one of these things here. Maybe it just doesn't want to open. Okay, there it is. Now we're getting somewhere. And I was going to show our acoustic resonance as a pentadactyl fractal with pentadactyl or pentagon. I mean, we are literally inside of the 5 point. We got 5 5 toes on each. Generally, most people have 5 toes, 10 toes altogether. At 5 limbs, 5 it frays. Our limbs are frayed into 5, and we have vortical fluid motion with these the electrical connectivity of the body. Now, I'm trying to go into. I don't know why it's not. Sorry, guys. It's just connecting, which is fine. But I was saying, the galaxy is roped up into our hearts and wrapped up into our fingertips and comes out of our eyes, and we, as biophotons, and this is all documented and with plenty of scientific experiments. Biophotonic charge comes out of our bodies. We shoot it out of us. Google Sheets is trying to do some stuff. Oh, okay, there we go. Now, I'm going to show, for some reason, maybe this is why we are stuck inside of this pentagon. And I don't know if the right term is pentatonic or not. But I'm going to open this. This is the algorithm or the breakdown of the Dougherty set and the Dougherty Network. Literally toroid by toroid. And it gets into the trillions, and then it gets into, eventually, it goes on forever. Each one of these is a specific geometry that I showed earlier inside of these images, inside of Skype. Right here. Where is it at? Sorry, guys. All right, whatever. So these, I'm going to show us right now the 5, the secret of some sort of a digital, inside of the digital code of the breakdown of these ethereal currents and charge. Now you got 1, 3, 5. That's the third filament. The third filament starts the zeroing out of the circuit. Now, if you look at all along this whole circuit, it ends in zeros. The entirety of the whole thing ends in zeros. Now you go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Zeros, all zeros, all zeros. So there's a blip, there's a zero axis among these. There's a five point cyclicity inside of the birkeland currents that are coming off of the sun that break down into their natural quaternion breakup. When they break up, they turn into the binary. These are all binary filaments that are toroids, and each number is 2. It's a toroid. It has 2 numbers, so it's like matter and antimatter, each number. And that might be what helps build the body, is our antibody. I have Buddy here, your host of the geometric view, and then I have antibody. Each number, and if you'll notice, all of these are the odd numbers. That's what starts all of the birkeland currents. The rest of them are subnested even numbers, and that's how charge equally distributes along the toroidal helicoid, or there was another, the helihydra of the dragon of charge and plasma, and how it works, because it's rivers. This is all river dynamics, and so you go here, so that's a zero out. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. So is that a beat of? Let's start here. 1, 2, 3, 4, blank. 1. So it is a 5 count. It's not a 4 count, because a 4 counts 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. So yeah, it is. Now I want to see what pentatonic is. Pentatonic scale, because I think it's in music, and if that has anything to do with what I'm showing here, the pentatonic scale is a musical scale with 5 notes per octave, in contrast to the heptatonic scale, which has 7 notes per octave. Pentatonic scales were developed independently by many ancient civilizations and are still used in various musical styles to this day. Okay. Beaten to the drum of the universe. Interesting. Okay, so enough about that. There's plenty of secrets to be found the next forever eons when we get into when we get into doing that stuff more. Or sorry, when I release the universe game and we get into the neural networks and the neuromorphic spintronics of how the universal circuitry works. And there's memory in there. So, all right, now what I want to do is, let me go. There's heart rate variability is fractal, attention is fractal, charge is fractal, induction is fractal. These are all helical. Fractals are predictive and can help predict cancer. Everything, it seems like everything is fractal. And the more we look into fractals, the more technology advances. So, I mean, to me, there's no way to cut it other than saying that everything is fractal. And there's, okay, I'll wait to release, or I'll wait to talk about that. So let me get into my presentation, if you will. It's 2 o'clock. It's 202-822-2020. So August 22nd, 2020 here. Hide. And I'm going to pull up Google Slides. I love Google Slides. It's really cool. I suggest people use it. It's intuitive and fun. So while Google Slides comes up, I'll share a couple images that are in the chat. This is Michael Evans' work, and he is a pioneer in hyperbolic geometries, which is how the universe works in the circuitry. It's not necessarily Euclidean straight line geometry. It is hyperbolic, non-Euclidean geometries that are doing the spin, and that things are. We see it in. I showed it here. I broke it down into Euclidean, so you can do the basic inverse octagonal law, or the polygonal scale, the inverse polygonal scale. These are, I don't know if anybody ever showed this, but this is how the Dougherty set was created, and now I created all of these other Dougherty sets and refer to them as Theodortian roots, because they're the basic square root, heptagonal root. You go inside of it and you produce a Bessel function, which produces the drum beat of it, and then you repeat that drum beat infinitely, and you get beings, you get charge, you get the circuitry of the whole universe. So these are some of the presentations I've been working on. Let's do, and this is totally winging it for sure, because I only worked on it briefly this week. I hope to work on next week's even more in depth. I think we might do bubble sculpting next week. And bubble sculpting breaks down the Dougherty set into actual hyperbolic shapes that reveal the crystalline architecture of these birkeland currents. And bubble sculpting was taught to me by Terrence Howard, the actor, and I'm super excited and ecstatic to validate some of his claims about how these space-time geometries work, and introduce a bunch of mine. So you take apart the Dougherty set and you can cut it up and turn it into crystals that are brand new crystals that don't even have names yet, and connect them all together to create these crystalline grids. And I think that's going to get deeper into bubble sculpting in the next episode. So let me put on present. Fractal properties of plasma, space, charge, time, and magnetohydrodynamics. This, my friends and viewers, is SpaceX Raptor engine test compilation. Now, I'll play the video and some videos after, but I see a shape here that looks like an airplane. It's aerodynamic. It definitely is inside of the Dougherty set. So, and if you look at Walter Russell's work inside of A New Concept of the Universe, and how he's showing this two-way cyclical interactions between point to point of all charge. Now we're going to get into, remember this, because I'm going to show auroras that have beads along them that glow where at the pinch points where the pine cones kiss noses, like Dan Winter talks about. These pinch points are luminescent. They glow brighter than the rest of the circuit that they travel along. Now, of course, Russell was way ahead of his time, and we learned a lot from him, but you can see the dynamics here of the implosive and explosive forces working together on the thrust here. Here's the shape that I wanted to show. And I wanted to show that this shape is what got me into Bridges and got me peer-reviewed and published in their book that year in 2017. That was a really hard year for me, but it was a very I learned a lot that year. But anyway, 2000. So this shape here is indicative of vorticity and countervorticity, and implosive and explosive dynamism, motion moving through here. I can pull up the article later here in Bridges' Art and Mathematics, but the reason I think they were interested in some of the work that I'm working with is it's all scientific, and it's all showing and validating people's work that already exists. So it's like, don't take my word for it. Look, I'm finding these patterns, and they're all over. It's chocked full inside of this set here, or these foliations. Now, this is a blue whirl, which is a new type of fire that was discovered in 2016, and it was brought to my attention along the way somewhere, and they're like, "Dude, that's in your stuff," and I'm like, "No way!" Now, this is it was recently found at University of Maryland, I think. Yeah, University of Maryland. And it was discovered there, and it burns carbon-free emissions. It burns literally zero emissions, and we've never had a fire that did that before. This is important for rocketry, the advancement of high energy propulsion plasma physics, and that's why it's a shape right here. Now, I'll take us back to 2016, and this shape, when we first recently discovered it as humans, and now I'll fast forward to the video here of this Raptor being tested. But first, let me continue. Now, what we have here is obviously the same damn thing. If you can't see the same damn thing that I'm seeing here, then you need to adjust your eyes, focus a little better, and take another look. Because what we have here is heterodyning blue whirls, which I call the flame of life. And I hope it sticks with the flame of life, because it is literally the breakdown of a pillar of fire. Pillars. Each one of these is a pillar, and I'll show how the breakdown of birkeland currents uses this exact same geometry at the poles. And Felix Baumgartner, when he jumped out of space and he broke the sound barrier, he has this same geometry around his body as a cloud when he broke the sonic barrier. Now, you have the shape here, okay, and one down here. Fractal, recursive, self-similarity happening here. And this is inside of the newest, most advanced shit we're doing. Some of the most newest advanced shit that they're showing us that we're doing. Now, the importance of the discovery of the blue whirl was showing a lot of the importance is inside of the vorticity of it, and I break down the vorticity later down here in this episode, inside this presentation. But you can see here that if you follow this one down here, pinch up to this one, and they're connected, and there is the football shape, football shape, two lobes of football shapes, football shape, in between, betwixt the two, and you can't see them pinching off or touching because this charge goes all the way umbilically to the very tip of this, and you can see the dynamics here, that there is an interplay of multi-nested vorticity here, and we'll get into that as in the next couple slides here. Now here's a filament in space, binary filament, double helix, electric currents, showing a Birkeland current. Now let me show you the evolution of a pool of fire into a blue whirl over water in a swirl generator. Now, a pillar of fire leading us out of Egypt, pillar of fire by night and a pillar of smoke by the day. That was then. This is now. A pillar condensed into a plasmoid during the most prophesized time in all of history. If you look at all the books, like, we're living in the prophecy of prophecies of prophecies of prophecies being fulfilled on the regular, moment to moment. So things are heating up a bit, you might say. Now, go back to the beginning of this episode, and I talked about compression and rarefaction, pushing down and pulling out. You get geometries, you get vortical filaments, you get Lichtenberg figures, you get lightning-like figures. Now, same thing happening here. Compression, you get the plasmoid, this little plasmoid right here. And that is the most efficient way that we know how to clean up and burn fuel with carbon-free emissions. Now, this next image, I'm going to show you how you break those down and you add them to a charged sphere, and you have the north and the south pole, and that's what pulls in the charge, the fractal charge coming from the sun, and breaks it down into fractal sheaths along the auroras. Look at the bottom of this shape here. Here's the Van Allen belts. Here's the bottom of the shapes. They heterodyne and into each other at the tops of the poles, which is at the base of all Birkeland currents. The pinch, the current has to go through, so it pinches through, you know. And if you were to rotate this, which I think I did on the next one, you got an east to west axis that acts in the exact same. If I were to put these on top of each other or draw four directions, you would be able to see the four cardinal directions of the vorticity of charged spheres and hyperspheres, and, you know, ultimately the Earth. And what happens is, when it comes in the top, the majority of the charge comes shooting out of the poles, or a lot of the charge comes shooting out of the poles, and that's the equator. And so it works for the north, south, east, and west. How do I exit here? Exit full screen. Because I went too far into the presentation. So let me present again. Oh, how do I go back a slide? Oh, there we go. Now, I put this together. I'm just a geometer looking at patterns. Walter Russell called himself an interpreter of rhythmic patterns. His whole thing was rhythmic balance interchange, RBI, rhythmic balance interchange. Now, this genius, look at, there's the Van Allen belts right here, kissing and pinching each other, nested. Now, the genius of so many genius of Walter Russell is that he was way ahead of his time, and he put so much of this stuff together. And Russell's, either way, he stands as a character that emanates character, that charges character to build character for others. So get into his readings. I suggest it. There's plenty of other good readings. But like I said, an interpreter of rhythmic patterns, rhythmic balance interchange. Walter Russell started IBM from the ground up. It's the world's most powerful company. It's more powerful than Coca-Cola. Don't think for 1 second that it's not. That's what's going to connect the world into the grid called um, the the New World Order. The New World Order is electric. It's an electric serpent. The future is electric. Electric futurism. Check out the page on Facebook. Uh, Electric universe geometry. Check out the page. What's happening right before our eyes is the electric universe is expanding to the point where it's a duh. Whether they call it or not, it is what's happening. The future of telecommunication, the future of everything is electric, but it's going to be, I think, I don't know, I don't want to hypothesize about that sentiment, but it's through where I was going is it's through ID 2020. And who's that? IBM. IBM, Microsoft. This is what's going on. So I chose not to take the bait from IBM when they came to my house and did an in-home interview in 2012, because I did some research on the company and I realized where they were now and where they were then. And you can see the breakdown of Walter Russell's whole history and the people that he affected and he was working with. And it's just crazy. When you see people who are connected nowadays, you can connect the dots, but connecting the dots back then wasn't so obvious. You know, when you look at the guest book of the log of people that are coming in, that kind of information has been more of a secret. And now there's so much more interconnectivity, and we can reveal that kind of information. So, like I showed, north, south, east, west, you have these pinches of these plasmoids that are also inside of what is it? It's the SpaceX Raptor engine test. Now we're going to do the SpaceX Raptor engine test here in a second. Taxonomy of opposed spiral vortices is what I call this. And you can see it is self-evident that a series of 12 opposing spiral vortices nested within each other is what creates the dynamism of the vorticity within the blue whirl. That's fractal. Fractal implosion, fractal charge, fractal inside of fractal. Fractality right there. These nested chambers produce children's spires, which spelled wrong, sorry, voice to text, which produce parent spires and grandparent spires. These are all implosive and explosive geometries working in syncopation. And there's 3 grandchildren in here, 2 parents, and a grandparent. There's 1 grandparent, but together there's 2, because there's 1 flowing towards the generative flow of charge moving towards the nucleus, and the radiative charge, which is longer, the depth portion, moving away from the source, radiative vortex. Then you have another implosive vortex, and right here, and then another explosive vortex, building these children inside of here. There's 12 altogether, and this is just another pattern that I've discovered inside of the Dougherty set that happens to be all over inside of new plasmas and new energies that we're finding. Here's another look at it. You can see the football shapes connecting the heterodyning, which you can't even tell they touch. See? Because they're so far away from each other, and the pinch dissipates them. So that's that for that, for the presentation, because basically I just wanted to show the blue whirl, the plasmoids. Now let me show the blue whirl in action. So we'll just watch it. Fire whirls are powerful spinning disasters for people and surroundings when they occur in urban areas. We tried to harness their potential burning efficiency. In our experiments, two-way half cylinders were placed over a pan of water. You cut the cylinder in half to let for the air to come in. You can create these plasma vortices in your home, plasma tornadoes, fire tornadoes. Blue cone and the purple haze. Then after this, we'll play a SpaceX Raptor engine test, and we'll show that this is happening inside there. Spiral mode of vortex breakdown. So we were led out of Egypt at one time. Maybe we need to be led out of the New World Order. And that might be why Elon Musk is trying to go to Mars. He's like, I'm gonna use this pattern. I'm gonna take it to Mars. This is cool information. Boom. Transitions between blue and yellow whirls, 20% speed. And you can see the wave inside of it. And I show the wave inside the geometry too. There's a wave, there's geometry of that too inside of it. That's what I was exposing. Many questions still remain. This is one of the things we were going to try to do with Garrett Hill in his plasma lab. So there's plenty of different plasmoids that we can create here, and this all adds towards the predictive nature of the Dougherty set and what else is possible. Because the Dougherty set is a master grid of electromagnetic induction. So SpaceX Raptor test. Here we go. Now let's watch this sucker. Videos. Probably get a copyright strike. Hey Biden, how's it going? What you sniffing? Thought about it too. Billy was a sniffer too. Good old Billy. Slick Willie. Okay, here we go. He was just a sniffer of a different thing, according to his brother. He had a nose like a vacuum. So you see this happening here. Freaking gorgeous. Boom, 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 boom. Now, this is exciting, really exciting, because it's showing the fractal nature of technology, merging with the fractal nature of plasma, plasmoids, whatever the Dougherty set is, whatever the Dougherty networks are. Cylinder, I mean, this charge is coming out of a cylinder, so it's solenoidal. It's it is a field-aligned current, I guess you could say, in a way, because it's a path, a straight path. So nonetheless, it's beautiful, and I was happy that Sandor Phoenix sent that my way, which I interviewed him on my personal channel, which I interview people on, which is Buddy Dougherty on YouTube. So that's that. Okay. So we went through, we showed basic breakdown of the Cantor set, fractals, trees are fractal. Actually, trees are so fractal that they did a test, biologists did a test in a forest in the Amazon, and they were wondering if they could take one tree and count the large branches to the small branches of one single tree and see if that matched to the relative big trees and small trees in the whole forest. And guess what? It did. They picked a largest tree in the area. They counted the relative big to small branches on the tree, and it matched the relative big to small trees in the whole forest. So biologically, we are fractal. There's scale symmetries happening. There's scale relativity, which is really cool. Scale relativity in fractal space-time, which was introduced by Laurent Notel, an astrophysicist and a retired director of research at CNRS, and researcher at the Paris Observatory. He is the author and inventor of a theory of scale relativity, which aims to unify quantum physics and relativity theory. But if you take some of his applications and you realize what he's talking about, the Dougherty set is scale relativity. So it has scale symmetry too. Now scale symmetry is awesome in that so you can break down the scale relativity, some images here. But the universe is scale symmetric.
You're good.
Got a hot mic. Scale symmetry. Yeah, it's scale symmetric, which it is basically the breakdown of larger scales repeating themselves on other scales, which is what Gaston Julia showed with his iterative feedback loops of the Julia set. Here's the Julia set. Now, what Mandelbrot did is he took the Julia set and shoved it into itself over and over and over, and it created the Mandelbrot set. They're connected in that type of manner. Now, what I did is I took basic iterative functions of regular polygons and rotated them and created the scale relativity of birkeland currents and how they nest inside of each other subsequently into charge, an equal charge distribution along solenoids and filaments. So our brains will work like this. It's an approach to the universe. It's a cosmic approach to the universe utilizing very simple Euclidean and hyperbolic geometries. So now I think we're going to transition into the news half hour, hopefully. We did fractal galaxies, fractal nebulas. The mind is fractal, bodies are fractal. So charge is fractal. It's in our fingertips, it's in our toes, it's when we breathe. I posted this in Electric Universe Geometry this morning. It's got like 180 views, and Dan Winter said he posted this and testing dark matter versus fractality. It's not dark matter or dark energy that's happening. It's these filaments expanding and contracting is what's really happening. And there's geometry to it. I said that I would probably play it here for this episode. So sticking to my word here for Dan Winter, which I want to interview here very, very shortly. I've been wanting to interview him for a while here. That shows what Mikey Bergman was creating in his phi temples, who I interviewed as well. I was going to call Mikey for this episode, showing the holy grail of the wave embedding and the wave nesting. Now, wave embedding is phase conjugation, according to Dan Winter. And when waves embed, like in the Dougherty set, which we're going to see here in the news hour, you get charge, and the embedding of waves. It all happens because of phi. It is all phi. Hang on a minute, guys. Aurora, can you please make your sandwich out there? Thank you. Sorry guys, my mic is super high velocity sensitive. All right. So basically, I just showed that. So now I want to go down into electric universe geometry, which we just got up to 11,000 members, and show another image that I posted the other day, which takes the geometry of twistors, twistor theory by Roger Penrose, and puts twistors and hop vibrations inside of the Dougherty set, which, you know what, I don't even need to scroll down. I'm just going to hit the image right here. It's similar to this image, which there's the hop vibration inside of a charge inside of charge, which shows like the same kind of geometry that happens with the Earth. And you get that base cone there, you get that blue cone, that whirl, that vortex, and that is like the invisible top of it is the purple halo. All right, so we'll transition into the news hour. How you guys doing? Thanks for being here and still
doing fine. Actually probably about to roll out, so it's a little good coincidence for you to ask.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Interesting stuff. Very interesting stuff. What parts I could catch.
Thank you. Yeah, I do want to sit down with you and go through more of this because it makes a lot of sense with a lot of the stuff you're working with too.
Oh yeah, the geometries definitely show up. In fact, Gareth noticed, he was surprised, but he wasn't surprised. The ratios that are showing up in the cosmic egg research, whatever the shape was of the star, he says that especially the 1.23 is resonant with some of the plasma research that, and I forget I think he said, not art, Bostic, but we'd have to check with him because I don't remember, of course I can go back to the video once I get time. But these different geometry ratios going to show up. When we were talking about Herbig arrows versus marker and convection and stuff. So it was useful. Obviously, these geometries are going to show up in a more imperfect form, but always guiding themselves towards some hidden principles. And that's very important. But I keep up the work. The flame was really interesting too. You were covering this a while ago, and I was thinking about the conductivity of that plasma being combined with some of the other propulsion. I mean, I don't think flame or fire is going to be a key for us to get out there, but I bet that shape, and some kind of plasma ion drive might be a key. But
Right.
beyond me at this stage to know what that key would be. But at any rate, I thought it was interesting. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you again. Well,
hit me up anytime.
Okay.
Okay, I'll let you go.
All right. Bye.
Yeah, bye.
All right. Let's see. It looks like, oh, it is. Look at this. See these pinch points? These pinch points inside of the auroral beads, or along the aurora here. They're called auroral beads. But look what's right underneath it. Pinch points of standing waves, 3D standing waves. And we showed the geometry earlier of the charge where it pinches and breaks up. That's where it illuminates, just like where stars would form. along the charge. So get into this here for a minute, see what this has to offer. Oh, I didn't know it was a video. Look at this. Okay. Wow. Auroral beads seen from space. Wow, look at that. Pinch, pinch, pinch along the river. Oh, yes, this is great. I'm going to open this full scale here. I think a lot of the stuff is from NASA is for public domain. So there's your plasmoid pinch. There's the helicon waves reverberating, coming into the Earth, communicating, sonobiology, sound, turning into life, turning into diatoms, extricating pine trees and different trees. Oh, there's the beads of charge. There's the Earth. There's the heliopause, which is the dome. Everything's got a dome here. Okay. There's when the plasmoid pinches and the charge comes back, and you can hear it. Oh, look at that. The helical patterns. I guess they're liking it to when you hit a bubble, when charge hits a bubble and it ripples, and the drum beat is seen from the charge coming from the sun. Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. So that's like a lot of what we were talking about. Boom. All right, so that was good. See what else we got here. Oh, that was the bottom. This man right here, Jim Murray, a lot of people I know have talked to him. But man solves Tesla's secret to amplifying power by nearly 5,000%. That definitely seems newsworthy. Many of Nikola Tesla's secrets. He has engineered numerous machines. Jim gave a Free-Thought Project exclusive access to his lab and workshop. Now this is long, so we're not going to play the whole thing, but here's Jim talking about his lab. And if people are interested in this, they can go check it out for themselves. Looks really cool. Material found by scientists could merge AI with human brain. That sounds really cool. This goes back to last episode. Atmos. Atmos is a combining form using like prefix meaning air. It is often used in scientific terms, especially in metrology. Atmos comes from Greek word atmos, meaning smoke or vapor. Rotating hyperbolic geodesics fill the double-layered ionic sheath potentials of Markland convection and Birkeland currents. It is a liquid crystalline and quasi-crystalline filament. This is a cyclical universe expansion and contraction or compression and rarefaction. This is how stars stellate via input and output of charge. Extremely powerful bacteria live along there. I didn't get into so much of the atmospheres that are, the heliopause has an atmosphere. Everything has an atmosphere. There's the SpaceX. There's those two bubbles, two lobes. The singing life of plants, that's always beautiful. We've been talking about plants singing. This groundbreaking new material still getting opened. Okay. What is this groundbreaking new material? If it'll open. Scars not only cause damage but also interrupt electrical signals flowing between computers and muscles or brain tissue. The research from the University of Delaware were able to overcome this after various types of polymers. We got the idea for this project because we were trying to interface rigid organic microelectrodes with the brain. But brains are made out of organic, salty, live materials, said David Martin, who led the study. It wasn't working well, so we thought there must be a better way. We started looking at organic electronic materials like conjugated polymers that were being used in non-biological devices. We found a chemically stable example that was sold commercially as an anti-static coating for electronic displays. And then, what did they do? Looks like my computer's glitching out, having a hard time. The polymer known as PEDOT, P-E-D-O-T, exactly the needed to interface electronic hardware with human tissue without causing scarring, while also dramatically improving the performance of medical applications. Get into the circuit, baby. The versatile PEDOT polymer was also recently discovered to be capable of transforming standard house bricks into energy storage units. What? Due to its ability to penetrate porous materials and conduct electricity. What? The latest research used a PEDOT film with an antibody that stimulates blood vessel growth after injury and could be used to detect early stages of tumor growth in the body. Wow. My system's trying to crash, and I'm like, wait. Singing Life of Plants. I want to hear what it sounds like. Sounds beautiful. Check it out if you're interested. It's in the Geometric View News, and I might put it in the links below. This is just a really cool image. If it'll come up. Like I said, I'm having a hard time here. Probably gonna have to end it a little early, unfortunately, because there's a bunch to cover, but this is really cool. Very organic and dendrite-like, with all the filaments leading to other filaments, leading to other nodes. And very galactic. Beautiful. Then you zoom in and you can see more. This is pretty cool. This shows integrated information. The Bible is an integrated information system, and these are the cross references from beginning to end, and different color coded. Thought that was pretty cool. This, can you guess what keeps the ball rolling? Rotate this filament 11 times about its axis and you get the Dougherty set. Why is this important? I don't know. Let's see here. The Bible describes 12 gates of heaven as being made of pearls, blah, 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 blah. Goes in to describe a bunch of 12s and life, and the wellspring of our heart is an induced current that comes directly from the source. These cyclical, umbilical, helical, toroidal, filamental, nodal, conical, cylindrical, vortical elements fill your soul. We are all fundamental, just like this picture here shows. We all have that umbilical cord. We're all connected. We need to have that feeling of connectedness instead of separateness and psychotic, away from, not being connected. Be imbued with life and organization and patterns and thinking and helping others and mantras and praying, and be a fractal creature in your fractal atmosfractal. Your atmofractal, your whole atmosphere should be fractal. universal consciousness. This is an image that kind of shows what I'm trying to talk about here. White light coming in, being bent by the atmosphere, and breaking up into the vortexture, into sub-coordinates of the vortical toroidal forest here. Great work here by Chad Faraday, the logo of Love is Watching, rotating inside of the circuitry here, as it does, as we do. More filament work. This one's a really good image here, showing the inner children vortices and the flowing geometries that come off of it. The implosive and explosive dynamic systolic growth of moment to moment enveloping requires two-way opposing spiral vortices. Such an action is a coordinated effort between hierarchical taxonomic opposed spiral vortices, like we showed earlier. Quite possibly all movements are attached to all other movements using this synergetic tensegrity. Butterfly wings of charged billow growth at the expansion rate of 1/r², Euler's number, becomes the fabric of this magic happening. The global electric circuit consumes and digests according to this principle only to keep the Earth at a constant Schumann resonance. This can be thought of as the heartbeat of charge, lightning, or a birkeland current, i.e. plasma. This is the crackling that we hear of thunder, the geometry at a micro scale, but it is the identical shapes at the macro scale. Another good one, I thought, showing lower ordered systems, feedback loops, feed-forward loops. Circuitries of feed-forward loops are amazing. Here's a good geometry of you being able to get in tune with the larger universal geometries coming right out of your 33 channels of your vertebrae and creating that Kundalini closeness to the charge in the universe. Here's discovery that looks really familiar to the cavitation of the toroid here, which is a plasmoid, or sorry, a pulsar. Pulsars shine bright and they change their shining because of the same geometry here as it billows out, and charge lightens it and darkens it. Now, this is Beltrami vortex here, is the keton locking vacuum energy and the self-organizational form. Now, infinite periodic quaternion, omnidirectional infinite periodic quaternion Feigenbaum wells of Beltrami vortices come directly out of the Dougherty set. This is just the best way for the Bessel function and the beat of the drum to move and break down charge from sheathed layer to sheathed layer. Efficient energy distribution. And it's all phi. It's all phase conjugation, and waves embed along the tubes of each one of these, and they can work at the same time and create constructive and destructive resonance. Dan Winter talks about life is the ability to pull charge out of the vacuum, and that's exactly what's happening. Life is hydrophilic, and it's pulling charge out of the vacuum and turning into life. Show this good one here, just depicting different things happening inside the inherent geometries, building pillars with the Bessel function, as pillars do build. When you show the counter space of anything, you start to show the pillars. More showing the helical pinches and beads inside of the auroras, auroral beading. This is auroral beading. It's pinched up toroids inside of the charge that's flowing, a helical flow charge, and it becomes glowing due to the coronal glow. Another example of the charge breaking down from cylinders using toroids out of the Dougherty set, and showing exactly how it comes right out of the hurricane, or right out of a water spout or tornado. Same geometries coming right out of the center, and that's how they form. There's other sub-vortices. When you look at how tornadoes are formed, they're surrounded by vortexture, other vortexes that are promulgating and pumping up the main vortex seen here when you look into tornado dynamics. Here's the helicon waves that I keep talking about, the geometry of them. Look into it for yourself. Here's when we hit 10,000 or 11,000 viewers. Actually, that was before, but here we have the fractal breakdown of space-time into what I was showing with the Mueller fractal, but also in combination with the Cantor, like Cantor space. Because you have the breakdown into individual units, which is showing two attics. There's two here, two, and there's two here, two here, two here, which is quaternion. Quaternion breakdown of two attics inside of the, basically of the rooms, or one pinch of a wavelet wave function here. And you always have a preponderance of charge in all waves. You have preponderance of charge coming in, then leaving, smaller gate, larger opening gate. This is Paul Laffoli's leverage gyre, showing us how to get into the universe. This is Raphael Aurelio's geometry, Albert Durer's geometry here, and then my geometry of the Dougherty set. All showing the same type of helical charge, just different types of ways of looking at the golden ratio cubed. We went through all that today. Magnetic rivers feed young stars, like we were talking about. Look, NASA's finally talking about it. Magnetic rivers. God forbid they call them electric. No, they're going to call them magnetic rivers. So now they literally used to talk about dark matter and dark energy and gravity and all this stuff, and now look what they're saying. Stars like our sun form when clouds of gas and dust collapse under gravity. But of course they're still using that. But how does the material get from interstellar space into these clouds, and what controls their collapse? Yep, God forbid they say birkeland current in here, or electric currents. But yeah, at least they're talking about it. SpaceX Raptor, we went through that. This is the cymatics that was downtown in honor of the frontline servers. It was put together by gathering of noetic generation. Really cool though to see. A couple weeks ago, the cymatics episode came out, and then a couple weeks later, we got cymatics in downtown Times Square, and it says, "I love you because all your heart." For essential for us, something like that. Beautiful, beautiful. John Stewart Reed. Still got to get with him and get him on the episode. All right, I think he wants to do a one-on-one, is what he said. I thought this was super cool because this freaking shark, they think it was born in like 1627. It's lived through so much. So we're nearing the end of the show. We got about 2 minutes, 3 minutes left. And some good stuff from Ethan Clark here, showing Whistler wave particle interaction generates EMIC, which I'm curious to see what EMIC is. And his broadband theory, I love his work. Equatorial plumes of ionospheric plasma rise to reveal structures in the electron flux identical to those produced by NWC. Excuse me. It may be that transmitter-induced Whistler mode waves plow into the side of the rising plasma from the right side at such an angle so as to create a temperature imbalance in the plasma, allowing for the generation of EMIC plasma waves that launch out into the other side and are capable of fueling plasmaric hiss and the EEP ozone depletion process. Wow. So it could be partially what creates the ozone depletion. Interesting. All right, and that's it for the news hour. Perfect timing. Look at that. All right, so I'll go back here. See if we got shared everything in the chats. Check with Chris. See how Chris is doing here.
I'm good, buddy. Profound
How you
stuff. Really loving it.
What's that?
I said I'm loving it, man. Good stuff.
Yeah, I mean it's a lot to take in, but if you know, people like you and me who've been listening in for a while, it might make a lot more sense too, because a lot of these words are big and these concepts are different and our minds aren't really wrapped around it yet. But once we get it,
I think the simplicity needs to be reflected on in terms of we tend to in the beast complicate matters when, as opposed to trying to simplify things, and that's really what you're offering here and what you're offering to science really in terms of geometry as a foundation to science, which it's going there anyways, right? But your intellectual courage is really important towards these newer ideas, right? Because there's just rehashing older ideas right now, but this stuff that you're doing is just it's really groundbreaking and gives me hope, because I know that the stuff that I'm talking about in terms of numbers of having essence is I think has to follow that, because it's got to go through that process. They're not going to get to the number as essence until they accept the geometry as a foundation of sound.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, time and time again, this is Keely's work. You can see the breakup of individual vorticity. I believe this is Keely. It looks like Walter Russell. Is it Russell?
No, it's Keely.
Okay, yeah. This is how his generators were all based off of the three trionic, tetraionic, or whatever. But when you look at this is exactly how helicon waves form. And you see how the base of helicon waves and the triple piece Gould waves, which is the counter space of the waves here. There's the counter space and the space. Very Celtic, very like a Celtic knot, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, now that Trinity is fundamental. The tetronics is really the face of mass, right? Is what that Trinity really represents. Those three, the trefoil, the three ring is it is the fundamental. It is the tessellated equilateral space that forms the matrix essentially, which is cubic.
The isotropic vector matrix.
Yeah. I mean, it's in our mathematics. They call it matrix algebra, for God's sake.
These are Apollonian gaskets and Apollonian pinches that happen when the pinching happens inside of the plasma. These are all fractal. Apollonian gaskets form, which is really
cool. Where all my work is centered, dude. Because those are numbers.
What's that?
I said those are numbers.
These, indeed. So if you look here, this is this is that's funny. I mistook him for Walter Russell. Terrence Howard's all shape. And he showed me how to make. He gave me the all shape. Didn't show me how to make it, but then I reverse engineered it. Made them based on the scaling of the Dougherty set, square root 2. And then I showed him that they nest inside of each other, inside of each other, inside of each other. So this is one shape that is repeated within inside of each other, inside of each other, inside of each other. It's three-dimensional Sierpinski gasket or Koch's curve that we were showing earlier. So I thought that was super cool. And he's like, oh, dude, so like you can nest all sorts of different shapes inside of each other if the harmonics are correct. But if not, then they don't nest perfectly.
No, that's the key.
Hyperbolic.
And the phi dampening defines that harmonic in terms of geometric form.
Yep.
That folding efficiency.
Phi dampening. It's all phi dampening. Phi dampening is just like how helicon waves, the dampening of helicon waves and Whistler waves produce.
That's what creates that pin.
That's how it produces pine trees. When you look at the dampening of Whistler waves, it's the shape of a pine tree.
Yeah. No, the pine is really key to everything, man.
Oh yeah. Yep. Definitely the pine, and it's just like how the flowers unfurl, which I don't get into taxonomically and the phylotactic breakdown of phylotactic spirals enough, but yeah, I mean, it's implied. So this is the last image that I want to show. I created a green flamethrower. Who taught me how to build this? Backyard Scientist. Thank you, Backyard Scientist. Backyard Scientist also showed me how to do fractal branding, which is electropyrography, which is the Lichtenberg figures that I burn into the wood. So I built this. They're super easy and fun to make. And I'm pretty sure my daughter got to pick this picture. This is the first time I ever shot the gun, the green flamethrower, and this picture was taken. No edit whatsoever. Does that not say love is watching? That looks like love is watching to me. You got the drip from the tear. Here's the eye. The love is the phallic, the penis. The V at the front of the penis resembling the vagina and the phallic, because the penis is part and parcel of the vagina. It comes out of the clitoris. It is the clitoris. So you got the one gender eating the heart. Love is watching, or moving towards the heart. So I just was like, holy crap. No doctoring whatsoever of this image. You can see the yellow fire burning down here, and you can see the green fire and the green flame coming out of the thing. So I liked that. I was happy that that happened. All right, Chris, you got any closing remarks?
No, just thank you.
Thank you, man. All right, love you. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you next week.
Love you too, dude.
God bless. All right, bye.
The geometric view is a Love is Watching product. Love is Watching being. Thank you for doing that. Keep your eyeballs out. Pay attention. There's a lot going down this year. Be vigilant. Be mindful. Be insightful. Be loving. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being kind. Share the love. Spread the love. Become the love. Amen.
Thank you for joining us for Season 3, Episode 35. Fractal properties of plasma, space, charge, and magnetohydrodynamic geometry.
Expect reflection when you're looking in the glass. The sea is enveloped, leaving living images no longer to be refracted. The fractal shiver cold ice iterations. No more sound when we become the pillars in the kingdom of heaven. Sitting at the feast, we defeated the beast. Asking you shall receive. Knocking the door will be opened. Figure eights melting all, counting down the days. Living in an icicle age. Ice iterations, hiking your boots, wash your robes. Caution but boss to the cause. Moss never grows on a rolling rock. Freezing, appeasing, we're falling off the kingdom of heaven. Fruit to be squeezed and salt to be tossed. Boss of none, a servant to be exact. Those that overcome know their names are written in the Lamb's book of life. No dualities battling back and forth. The vacuum is clean from scene to scene. To beam me up with Jesus, I'm ready. Existing amongst the structure while it implodes and explodes. New Jerusalem unfolds. The deeper it goes, you see the whole of everything is heaven's within. Well within the bride, of course, abiding by the course of God against the force of Lucifer. Who's the first and the last? Room spinning and glistening golden glass. Like before, your feet will follow, seeds will toss in the wind. We're ripe at the core, night will be never given rain over day. Glowing in the dark, knowing when it's our time to shine. Circumnavigate the omni-optical body of love. Made of oscillatory nodes, a resonance of obvious knowing. Bowing balance to and fro. The present moment shadowed by you happening. The light cones of life combing over bubbling moments of motion, moving in rivers of rims only due to two torses multiplying self-similar rhythmically, gyroscopic in the zero in the house of you burning. Balls of the temple bounce off walls, often relentless sent from heaven above. Wrap around walls, pattern of premise scatters ephemeral, my memory resembling a wormhole. Soul quickening, a mimicking epiphany. Symmetry I see in every increment. Propinquity propitious, preponderant. My glass is more than half full, I see forever. Derivatives of every written code. Metronome, never known, never leaving home. Burst into panic, earth burning. It's not us being manic, it's true. But for us we're frozen time. So inclined to be dining for dinner day after day. Pray if it may, shape a rock before your eyes. Give it a new name, so you can see it in plain sight. Hype, but be ripe if you gripe. Might be the sight, be the center, be the enter. It's the you, it's the lose layers, shed them, get them off. Not quick enough, I'm making nothing, but I'm loving being something. The patterns of immaculate, the facts will back it up. Self-similar, rhythmic, spin and sync, indicative of victory over the earth. Birth, pains, hurt, wages is what I feel. Surreal cat, mirror that which you cannot perceive. Peel back and see beneath the shroud and die for the cause, cause eyes have always been upon us. I can often appeal for sacrosanct. Eyes fixed on the cross, ice frost over body. Loss of life is what it costs. Never set down your crown, be forever, seek eternal.
No matter whether we're riding or whether we're driving, as long as I'm riding with you. It don't matter whether we're riding or whether we're driving, as long as I'm riding with you. It don't matter whether we're riding or whether we're driving, as long as I'm riding with you. It don't matter whether we're riding or whether we're driving, as long as I'm riding with you. I don't wanna be the person to burden your emergencies at first hand, urgencies at second hand. Supplying the pain to find a definitive intervention for man. Not a division but a source code. Not a kiss and a toad and it turn into a prince. Not a turtle in a herd, not a fairy tale. Not a narrative, not a nursery rhyme. Not an aeroplane on a water plane with this real life intangible truth. Parallel to perfect tearing up a curtain, tearing up a hair again. Nancy Kerrigan, fair skin, hairpins, nails, her tailspin. Sonic speed, honestly, all I need is the good weed and the beer. All you wanna say is that my empathy is empty and I beat you with the curse words. Verbs are pressure where the wound bleeds. In order to swoon me, a spoon feed. Come by, I killed him with the curfew option. Adoption of property, the bippity boppity boo, the vapor that comes out of you. The people are robbing you of your spirit cause you have none. Pursuing the one with me and how to do. And I ask around. All I am is infinity, all that you can see, all that we are, all that we go to.